Namaskar and good afternoon. Let me, at the very outset, thank Carnegie India and Rudra, my good friend Rudra Chaudhary in particular, for inviting me to speak at the Global Technology Summit. This is an event that has brought much needed focus on the pressing technology-related issues of the day. So when we speak of technology, or more importantly, its application, it would be important to understand what drives the use of technology in India today. Let me try and put it in context from my perspective. Now, as Rudro mentioned, 2 days from now, India will formally take over as president of the G20. Now, this is an exceptional responsibility at an especially challenging time for the global community. Along with the G20, in the month of December, India will also preside over the UN Security Council and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. India's presidency of the influential G20 would be a historic first for the nation. The G20 presidency would be the most significant international event that India would have ever hosted, given the strong polarizations that cut across the north-south and east-west divides. The challenges and expectations from India's presidency are expected to be especially onerous and out of the ordinary. Now, just a couple of days ago, we had held a retreat for G20 ambassadors, heads of international organizations in India at the scenic and unique Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The general sentiment that prevailed there was that in these challenging times, globally, if there was one country that was well placed to respond to some of these challenges, it was India. I'm just sharing the sentiments at that place. What is important to note is that Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has been a valued interlocutor at the high table of global decision making, be it the United Nations, be it the G7, climate change conversations, the Quad, BRICS, or the SCO. Developing countries that have felt the adverse impact of the COVID pandemic and the consequences of the Ukraine conflict through the rising costs of food and energy imports look to India's presidency to give voice to their aspirations and for solutions that can usher in greater macroeconomic and financial stability. And in many senses, India's experiences in dealing with issues that have been pressing, developmental related issues, but also its achievements in providing for inclusive and accelerated development to its citizens could be well placed to provide answers to these global challenges. For India, technology has always been a great equalizer, where citizens from all walks of life have used a veritable toolkit of digital public goods to access services, public services, make payments, and even address their collective grievances. In a world splintered by polarization and technological balkanization, India will strive to ensure that the world in coming years is a just, equitable place with prosperous, inclusive societies at its core. The COVID-19 pandemic presented India with extraordinary challenges. The government of India responded to these challenges by unleashing a whole-of-government approach towards ensuring the welfare of its citizens. But cognizant of the responsibilities towards its friends, partners, allies among the global community of nations, India embarked on a mission to facilitate access to supply chains, raw materials, linking, in many cases, its manufacturing facilities with those of other nations, and also seeking waivers to engage in vaccine diplomacy. India was thus at the forefront of efforts to combat the pandemic, thereby demonstrating the probity with which it accepts and discharges its international obligations. The global pandemic showcased international cooperation among nations, and the single biggest takeaway from this unprecedented collaboration was that as a global family of nations, we are larger than the sum of our parts. International collaboration is not a zero-sum game with predetermined winners and losers. As Prime Minister Modi said way back in 2014 at the UN General Assembly, and I quote, "Our destinies are interlinked. We must discard any cynicism and usher in an era that is marked by a globally integrated approach to solving our collective problems." The Prime Minister has emphasized that the focus of India's G20 presidency will be on the global good and world welfare. India is today a nation on the move. It is the fastest growing large economy with sound macroeconomic fundamentals, robust public finances, and strong manufacturing and export growth. It is a top foreign direct investment destination. It is the largest smartphone consumer and global fintech adopter, demonstrating its strengths in the digital space and as a source of innovation. It is a leader in climate action. For India, technology has always been an enabler and a great equalizer. India has one of the world's best digital public infrastructure models that includes such transformative structures as the JAM Trinity, the UPI, Co-Win. Mr. R.S. Sharma was just here, who has been in many senses the initiator of Co-Win, Ayushman Bharat, FASTag, etc. Citizens from all walks of life in India have used a veritable toolkit of digital public goods to access public services, as I said, make payments, and even deal with grievances. India today is the fastest growing large economy, smartphone data consumer, and global fintech adopter. And at the summit in Bali, Prime Minister Modi pointed out that 40% of the world's real-time payment transactions took place in UPI, through the UPI system last year, which meant that India accounted for 40% of all global payment transactions, and that is quite an important figure. India's digital transformation, the Prime Minister said, has developed digital public goods whose basic architecture has inbuilt democratic principles. Sadly, citizens of most developing countries do not have any kind of digital identity. That's also an important factor. Digital identity has helped us in making direct benefits transfers, identifying the most vulnerable among our population, and ensuring that payments accruing out of socio-economic services go straight to the beneficiary themselves and are not diverted. India's experience in the past few years has shown that if digital architecture is made widely accessible, it can bring about socio-economic transformation. The proper use of digital technologies can become a force multiplier in the decades-long global fight against poverty. We are at a unique stage in our demography. Most of our population is below 35 years of age. Several important decisions have been taken in India in the recent past, and many policies have been crafted to take full advantage of what we see as a demographic dividend. A massive effort is on to make youth power truly a national power. And of course, the youth are being helped in every possible way, from skill development to Mudra loan. Be it Startup India, Stand Up India, Fit India, Khelo India, which is Sports India, everything is focused on the youth. And today we are in what we call an Azadi Ka Amrit Kal phase, which means that we are in the 25 years leading up to our 100th anniversary of independence. The Prime Minister pointed out that the youth would play the most important role in this, because those who are 25 today will be 50 when we attain our 100th anniversary in 2047. Digital India could provide a tech model for global solutions, but it's also being driven by the youth of India. So today's world, which needs innovative solutions, really look to the youth of India to provide the innovations necessary and the initiatives that are required to make this happen. India's startup sector is well known. In the G20, India has proposed a new engagement group called Startup 20, which will seek to provide the startups from all over the G20 countries the opportunity to come together and collaborate together for the benefit of the international community. Now, of course, in terms of our own presidency, it would be expected that digital transformations would be a key priority for us. The principle of data for development will be an integral part of the overall theme of our upcoming presidency. We would also make efforts with our G20 partners to create mechanisms that strengthen the capacity of developing countries to tackle health crises like the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, any future pandemics. And our presidency will take forward efforts to create holistic global health architecture that can respond better to future health crises like the COVID pandemic. We also need new innovation, new approaches to intellectual property, innovation and co-development of health technology to ensure a more inclusive response to health crises. It is also important for us to focus on the benefits that technological progress and evidence-based policy can provide us when it comes to expanding access to healthcare and nutrition. At the G20, this model could be internationalized. Digital India must go global. A new tech order must combine cross-border flows of technology and investment with development and growth aspirations. The G20 as a group consists of countries that account for 80% of the world's GDP, 75% of the world's trade, 2/3 of the world's population, and as such, its decisions, which are implemented, are done across the board and across the globe, and I think they have very wide acceptability at a global level. They will also have an intergenerational impact on people across all nations. We believe that with our presidency, it is now time to navigate these trying and testing times in a holistic and inclusive manner. So I do understand that there is a constraint of time. I'll stop here, and I think we will certainly look forward to more interactions with some of you here, especially on the issue of what technology can do in terms of setting the agenda for our G20 presidency. As I mentioned, this is going to be an overriding priority for us, how to use the issue of technology to see how we can contribute to the betterment of vast majority of people in the world, and how the G20 can be a mechanism for that. We will certainly not only showcase our experience and achievements, but we will look to other countries and other partners in providing us with the required momentum to take this initiative forward. So thank you very much, and namaskar.